Hi, everyone, and welcome to the CALMcast, which stands for Community Advocates for LGBTQ Mental Health. I'm so excited to be here today with some very exciting people. I won't say the name of the school they're from, but they're from a high school here in Florida. Representing Tampa guys. Why don't you guys give a quick introduction of who you are and why you're here?
I am Gray. I'm president of TQC. It's just like a safe space for LGBT youth and allies. Um, I'm in 11th grade and I am non-binary.
I'm Kaylin. I am the vice president of the Queer Club, and I am also in 11th grade, and my pronouns are she, they.
Well, it's really nice to have you guys here, and I actually saw you guys' work through a mutual follower on Instagram. It's crazy how you realize things, and I actually go to the same high school as them guys. But the issue is I'm not actually at the high school, so I had no chance to even know this club was kind of going on if I hadn't seen it on Instagram. So I'm really glad that I did, and I'm actually just really curious what inspired you guys to sort of start this club.
Honestly, I've been thinking about making this club for a while, mostly because I feel like we never had a club like this at the school. Um, and I feel like that was a big issue, especially when suicide rates are rising like heavily. And I just feel like students needed a safe space or like somewhere to like just get away from for a while. To like, I don't know, just get away from like the outside world or like issues at home.
Yeah, and I think a having a queer-friendly, like, safe space at school is a good idea, especially here in Florida with like the low acceptance and the bills that they're trying to pass and everything that isn't exactly in favor of us. But also, there are people where they don't have a good home life and they can't have a support system at home. So the Queer Club kind of offers that at school where they can get away from things.
Yeah, those are all very good reasons. I especially sympathize with the issue of the suicide rates. There's actually like a pretty very sad statistic, especially with the transgender community, that about 80%, some sources say over 80% of transgender youth, so students, seriously consider committing suicide within a year. And the actual suicide rate is around 47%. Hard to remember off the top of my head, but it is definitely a big issue. So the space that you're providing is very important and is doing a lot of good. So I just wanted to, thank you for starting that club. I know that some high schools have certain things like the GSA, Gay Straight Alliance. Some high schools now have to call them the Sexuality and Gender Alliance or like the Equality Club because of certain regulations.
Yeah.
Not gonna get into that. But I'm just, we kind of did talk about the mental health aspect of it and sort of providing that safe space. But overall, in your time in creating this club and hopefully over time after you guys graduate, what are you hoping for this club to achieve?
I personally, I want us to achieve just like better mental health. And I want I want a community. I don't want people to think they're alone or like they're just individual. I want us to be strong as a community. So like when things come like the bill or even like just daily life problems, I want people to think I'm fine because I have my community backing me up or like I just want people to feel like they don't have to commit suicide because there are people out there looking out for them.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I also want our club to hopefully change some things within our school. I want us to offer a community to queer students who need it. Um, but also, I want to educate and like inform people at our school who might not be queer or who are queer and don't know it, um, that it's not a bad thing. Like there are so many homophobic people at our school, teenagers, and I want to try to like do some activism, like explain or educate or inform that this is normal, this is who we are, it is not a bad thing, and it's not something that should be made fun of.
Yeah, I agree with that heavily. Um, I feel like activism is really a big thing.
Yes, I 100% agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why about a year ago I ended up starting Calm during an internship, but it sort of grew into sort of a different thing. And a big part of what I do here in my work and what Humanity Rising does as well is sort of getting together groups such as the Queer Club, groups such as GSAs, and just general youth and students to come together and advocate for change, whether it be advocating for safe spaces such as you guys are doing, whether it be on another side of things, which is more focusing on policies and best practices and the more technical and not the mental health portion. But there's a lot of work to be done in this area, and there's a lot of work coming up that I'm really excited to sort of get involved in because I also feel very passionate about this. I mean, obviously, but for me, I know that coming up, especially with Pride Month coming up in June, which we're going to be doing a lot of events surrounding. It's really important for people to understand that piece, that piece of community, knowing that if you're struggling, or if you don't know where to go, or if your family's not accepting, or if you're struggling with bullying, especially cyberbullying in today's day and age, that there is millions of people who are out there to support you. And a lot of the problems most of the time is finding where those people are. Like, they're there, but how do I get to them? How do I talk to them? And so having these clubs, especially in a place like a school, in a public forum, is very important. Something that you mentioned sort of relates to one of the questions I had for you guys about school culture, which is how do you think school culture, so things like the attitudes of the staff and the students, how do you think that affects specifically students who are LGBTQ at the school before the club started and after the club started? So things like just the culture in general, in terms of student mental health, do you think it is leaning towards more negative or more positive? Just what are your thoughts?
Um, I think the staff, I feel like personally, some staff are trying their best and they're trying to remember everybody's preferred names, pronouns. I think some staff are trying their hardest to but there are other staff who just don't care or they just refuse to put an effort towards. I think they see the issue, but they're ignoring it, especially at the protest. When there were rocks getting thrown at us, nothing really happened. Like they didn't take any defensive action against people who were throwing those things, yelling slurs at us or spraying water at us. They didn't take no defensive action until we had to find ourselves a video of it. I think within students, since the club just started, I don't know how the mental health, I want the mental health to rise, but I want people to put an effort towards trying to, because unless you try, it's not going to change.
Yeah, so we had the high schools like all around Florida. I believe it was March 3rd. It might have been March 2nd. I believe it was March 3rd. They were all walking out in protest of the Don't Say Gay bill. And so we did that. We organized that for, I did. I really organized it for our school. And it was kind of an eye-opener because you could really tell who actually cared, who was kind of performative, which I know that is a big thing with allyship and people in the community, like performative activism. And then you could tell there were just people there to skip class or to bring us down. I do think it was successful. I do think it got our point point across. But I'm hoping that since you could kind of see everyone was right there, who was in support, who's not, who's kind of on the fence, there was like admin was coming up to us and saying like, you had your 10 minutes, this isn't how you're supposed to do things, there are better ways to solve this issue. And we're like, no, this is how this issue gets solved.
Yeah, I would agree that activism is definitely a big part of it. I'm curious in terms of changing the school culture and changing the attitudes of the teachers and the staff. I wonder if this movement has to go to a higher level, because like you said, teachers maybe want to support, but maybe they're being pushed down by admin or worried about losing their job or something along those lines. So, how do you feel about sort of the idea of taking these ideas and this mission to a higher level of authority? And do you think that would end up making a bigger impact? Because, what I found is normally you can change a community and you can really advocate and make a difference, especially, I mean, with this, the whole reason we even have the opportunity to be talking here today started way back with the Stonewall riots. And that was essentially just a group of amazing LGBTQ activists coming together and saying, like, we're not going to stand for this anymore. And eventually that became so powerful that policy changed. Do you think that, I mean, there was also other things such as Harvey Milk, who was the first, one of the first LGBTQ members who was out, at least like in my personal opinion. I feel like there were ones before him that just were like not saying it, but Harvey Milk was one of the first LGBTQ politicians. So do you think there's sort of an opportunity, at least here in this district or here in Florida, to take your message to a higher level to create a bigger impact and hopefully reduce things like teachers who may be hesitant, or even principals, because principals can get fired by the upper level of the district?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I'm actually very curious to see how it will play out, since I don't believe it's been signed actually been signed into law yet, but it did pass in the Senate, the Don't Say Gay bill. That is one of the things that I'm very curious to actually see the impact of once somebody if somebody tries to sue, because teachers will be held personally responsible instead of the school, which already is a huge problem because there's a national teacher shortage. Like, why are you trying to target teachers? But that's a whole other problem. What I'm curious to see is if a parent actually tries to take action or like sue or bring it up with the school and it goes to a higher level, how that will play out, because it's like I'm curious to see if I feel like it might make more of an impact if it's in support. I don't think that if somebody actually tries to sue over this, they would win. I feel like if somebody actually tries to sue over this, it would make headlines, and then people would be like, this is really stupid, and realize kind of, this is limiting us, this isn't fair, this literally goes against freedom of speech. We are allowed to exist, queer people are allowed to exist, why are we trying to shield it from classrooms? I think if we see that in a higher level of enforcement or government, it will make more of an impact.
I want to see if this will be like a protest that'll last a while, because most protests nowadays, they're not like protests that were like back in the days. They die down eventually. Like the Black Lives Matter movement, yeah, everybody was mad for like a while, but now some people don't even know what we were fighting for, the names of the people. I want to see if this protest is going to actually last, if this is something we want to fight for, because this is something I would really want to fight for. This is something if I could take to the Supreme Court, I would. But I want to see if other people feel that way, if this is something we're actually fighting for, or if this is something we're complaining about just because we feel the need to. I want to see if other people just want to protest because they feel the need to protest and not because they actually want to change something. Because I actually want to see change. I want to make a difference in the community because this is affecting me as an individual and this is affecting us as a community. There's like a saying, if you don't teach about the past, it tends to have repeat itself. That's what I feel is going to happen if you're not teaching about LGBTQ. It's going to be like, what was it, the AIDS epidemic?
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. And there's something interesting. There's two interesting points that really stuck out to me when you both were speaking, which is especially what you just said about, do people really care about this in the long term, or is this sort of just short-term momentum? And for me, I think that for some people it is short-term momentum, which goes back to something that was said previously about performative activism, which is people just sort of want to be a part of something, or they want to shine some good light on their moral character. And I have written a blog about this and done 2 podcasts on it about what it actually means to be a real ally and not a performative ally or somebody who is an ally to infiltrate the community and cause harm. And all of that. So you guys can go check those out, and you can also read it. But there's a real big issue, I think, with people understanding what it actually means to be an ally and what it actually means to stand up for this cause. I think you two are great examples of what that actually means. Obviously, you are part of the LGBTQ community, so you wouldn't fall under the category of an ally. But it's, two sides of the same coin, and essentially. And I think one of the ways that we can prevent this from being a short-term movement that sort of just fizzles out is by creating clubs like this, because these are things that get institutionalized, which basically means like solidified within a school, because you do a protest and people can forget about it in a year. But if you have a club that's constantly around and constantly doing things, it's so much harder to forget. And it becomes something like, oh, this club's been around for this many years or this many generations and things like that. So in the same breath, you guys have started this club, but a lot of schools, like we said in the beginning, don't. How do you think it would benefit other schools to have these clubs, and how can we get clubs in other schools that maybe don't have as big of an LGBTQ community advocating for the creation of them?
I personally think it would benefit other schools because we're not the only people with LGBT youth or people in distress due to this. It's going on all across Florida. People need help all across Florida. There are issues that need to be resolved and issues that need to be spoken upon. And without speaking on them, only a small amount of people cannot make a big difference. You cannot make a difference with only 11 people. There needs to be a heavy amount of people actually wanting to fight for it in order for there to change. It's also just like having even somewhere for people to talk to. That I think that would really benefit students' home life and their school life, because we do spend a lot of time at school. We sometimes see our teachers more than we even see our parents. So if like you said, if students are getting bullied and they don't want to come to school, having a club like that might make them want to actually show up to school. Like, it might make them want to take part in other activities apart from just going to school and going straight home.
Yeah, and I think the best way to actually get these clubs into schools is, I think our best bet, our best tool that we have for us in terms of spreading the word is social media. That's why you are seeing protests are getting record numbers. That's how why, like, that's why every high school across Florida had some form of walkout March 3rd. This is because of social media. There are very positive and very negative effects, but I think this is definitely one of the positives is communication, because this way, a like let's say there's a middle school and they don't have a lot of queer students because they're not in a very good like accepting location. If we use social media to say this is a thing that can happen, you can make supporting clubs at your schools, you are accepted, you need to accept others, and you're able to make your own community for that. If we're able to spread that word using social media, whether it be like, Instagram, Twitter, or even like YouTube videos, I think that can give message to maybe younger queer people who don't realize they have that ability or power, and that way they can help their schools to become more accepting for people like us.
Those are all good things. And I mean, I completely agree. I'm silent because I would have had something to add, but you guys have said things that I really do agree with. So you guys essentially took the words right out of my mouth. But there's something that's been kind of egging at the back of my mind throughout this conversation. I feel like, as a whole, activists tend to talk a lot about other people, and we tend to focus on healing and supporting everybody else's mental health and well-being. But I wanted to ask you guys, how do you think running this club and sort of creating it just in general has impacted your well-being and your mental health?
I'm definitely, it's very hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like even like trying to figure out what to do for next meetings is very hard. Like I have lost a lot of sleep from it. I'm not, but I honestly love being around the people there. I just love the club as a total, and it has brought up my mental health. Just speaking to them and like hearing them, like seeing them listen, and like seeing them just so invested, just like it just cheers me up, and like it makes me feel powered, and like it just like helps. So yeah, I wouldn't, yeah, it brings up my mental health is.
Yeah, I agree. It's very encouraging, I suppose is probably the best way to put it. It's encouraging to see the people who come and sit down with us for like 2 hours every club meet. Like it makes you happy. Like I don't really think there's a better way to put it, but it brings up the mood, because you're like, these people genuinely support us. We have people who are like us. And I mean, I am very fortunate to come from a accepting family. My family has always been supportive. They've never had an issue with it. Um, but I know some people don't. So I'm really hoping that for people who don't, or maybe don't have a good mental health for that reason, because I know that's the main reason why a lot of queer people don't have very good mental health, is because of the constant microaggressions, the constant like abuse that they face only because of this. So I'm hoping that for people who genuinely do struggle with that, they can also come to this club and see like the amount of people that are here in support of them, and hopefully it will cheer them up the same way that cheers us up.
That's really nice to hear that it's uplifting. I do agree that at times advocacy work can be a little stressful. Especially even just running this podcast, people listen to it, but they don't really think about how much goes into it, right? Like you have to do a lot of research to write these blogs, keep them informative and keep them true. With this podcast, you have to reach out to people and schedule and do all the editing and the posting, and it's a lot of work, and I as well have lost a lot of sleep over like, what am I going to talk about next week? I have no more ideas, I'm an imposter. But I think that at the end of the day, knowing that your work is making a difference and knowing that, by helping the community that you're a part of, you're also helping yourself. And it's a very rewarding experience. And it does make you feel very happy, or at least from what I've gathered. And it makes you feel very fulfilled. And I feel like some people, maybe they're a part of the LGBTQ community or they're allies, but they don't think that they have a place in advocacy and they don't think they have a place in speaking out, or maybe they don't feel confident enough or in a good enough mental space. But what I would say is, one of the things that helped me improve my mental health, because I have a few like mental illnesses that got pretty severe for a few years. And one of the things that helped me come out of it was finding a purpose in advocacy work. And so if anyone is really struggling with mental health, and you don't feel like because of that you have a place in advocacy work, I think that you should just do it. You should just dive right in, join a club like, the Queer Club, start a blog, just talk to people and get involved in your community. And I think that just doing little things as you go, even joining like, I don't know, like a Discord chat, like things like that, stuff we don't normally think of as advocacy really is, because having those conversations is bringing awareness. So I would just encourage people to get involved as possible, because I do think it can have a great impact on your mental health. And I've kind of been speaking directly to the listeners for a minute, but I wanted to ask you guys if you could say like a few words or a few sentences to anybody who is listening right now, what would you say to them?
I would like to say that finding your place in this day and age is really stressful, especially with society right now. I just want to tell you, be yourself. Like, no matter what, just like be yourself. Be the best person you can be. I just want to say, if you are struggling with mental illnesses, talk to someone. Like, especially if there's a club like this at your school, join it.
It can be in real life. It can be online. I don't think it necessarily matters which. I mean, obviously you can probably make more impact and might feel more meaningful to you if it's in real life. But if that's not available to you and you don't feel comfortable making that community, or it's not like anything around your location, or it's not something in your school, find something online. There are always people to support you. There's always going to be a community available. You just have to do some digging. And most of the time, it's really simple. Like, I know there are just like on Instagram, you can find support posts where like people go down into the comments and give their names, pronouns, sexuality, and be like, hey, I'm queer, I'm looking for some support or a cute little community to just help everyone. And I think it has a really positive impact. It can like just be a Discord server. You don't have to necessarily do a whole lot of activism or protests. I think just finding a support system for yourself is the most important thing you can do before trying to help others and before trying to bring awareness, I guess, is the best thing. You need to support yourself before you do that.
Yes, definitely. I agree, because if you're not, you can't lift everybody else up if your foundation is full of cracks and holes and it's not standing up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Something I had to learn the hard way, which was really interesting for me to experience. But, as evidence, you can experience that and realize like, oh, maybe I should really focus on myself, for a year and then get back into what I'm doing, what I love. And it can be a hard decision, but it's always worth it. I mean, I was a competitive cheerleader for 13 years. And on top of, I could blame some of it on a shoulder injury, but that I retired. But I also it wasn't a good environment. This is not to bash all-star cheerleading. If you like all-star cheerleading, I support you and your quest for the national championship. Go team. But for me, it was not a mental health. It was a mental health thing. And the gym that I was at, did not respect my mental health. I remember one of the times I was like, I can't come into practice. I am having literally a mental breakdown. And they were like, that's not an excuse. You need to be here. And I was like, okay. And I never went back. So it can be a really hard decision. It was really tough for me to make, to kind of step back from that. But if one day I had to step away from this work to focus on my mental health, I know that now, knowing what I know, I would do it. And so 100% make sure that you're okay before you try and make everybody else feel okay. So on that note, I am really glad that we all got to sort of get together today and have this really great conversation. And I really appreciate all of your time and everything that you guys are doing. And I always like to open up this space to my guests to plug anything that they want to plug, anything that any resources you want to tell people about, any accounts you'd like them to follow. I'm going to leave that space open for you guys right now.
Follow TQC WC. Oh, wait, can we say our school?
Just how about? Wait, hold on. Don't follow anything. Wait, no, I'm just kidding. You guys have an Instagram handle, right? It doesn't have the school name in it, does it?
Only has like the abbreviation.
Give it. Go ahead.
Okay. Follow TQC WCHS on Instagram. That's the queer club. You don't have to go to the school. It's basically just like, we're making a safe space for everybody. Just like, if you ever need help, to text us. We have a really cool social media manager. They're really cool. And I also check the DMs, so that'll be fine. If you wanna, if you wanna like come by, because I know you're like not at the school. If you wanna come by meeting sometime, you could just like let me know, and I'd like really love to have you.
Yeah, sure. I will make time because I'd really love to go there. Because I feel like some people I know might be there, and I just kind of want to I do want to see what you guys are up to, but I also want to pop in and be like, I knew it. If you listen to Hamilton, I knew you would be here. I knew it.
Oh God. Yeah, everyone in the club is either an art kid or a theater kid.
As they should.
Yeah, exactly.
We haven't had any really straight allies yet, but I think they're just a bit intimidated, because I know how like these type of things can be like a bit intimidating, because like I think they just feel like they might, I don't know. We won't hate crime anyone. I promise. Everybody there is so sweet.
It's fine. Straight people join. Like I always say, straight people come to Pride. Straight people join these clubs, because whether we want to admit it or not, they still have a good amount of power in society. They can get a lot more things done just by virtue of their sexuality and being like, so you are actually a great asset to us. So straighties, cisgender people, come to these clubs. We want you.
As much as I hate to admit it, we do want you.
We want you in your cargo pants. We will accept your polo shirts. Okay.
Your football, basketball team merch. Even if you ride horses, I'm fine with that.
Your hockey memorabilia.
Even the Ford truckers, like, just like come. I won't judge.
I don't know. I feel like we have to draw the line somewhere. I don't know about the truck. I'm just kidding.
We will judge if you don't judge. There we go.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that. How about that? Anything else that you guys like to add?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's.
All right. Well, I'm going to take this time to do what I do at every single end of every single episode, which is rattle off the handles that you can follow to be a part of the community advocates for LGBTQ mental health. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can go to @the.calm.blog. It's all lowercase. It's a terrible handle, and I hate it, and I say it every single episode, but everything else was taken, including the calm blog without the periods, the blog, calm blog, and just calm, because that's an actual like meditation app, interestingly enough. If you want to follow us on Twitter and see random tweets and us adding people who don't answer, you can go to @the all lowercase calm uppercase, all uppercase, because we're screaming constantly. We're always at the highest level possible. And then blog. And there's no spaces or anything in between that, and blog is all lowercase. If you want to join the movement, listen to the podcast, or just read our blogs, you can go to www.thecomblog.com and check all that stuff out. And now that I'm done with my rant, it is time for us to sign off. And thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you all for listening. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.